the Samaritan view of the Messiah. So, being that I have such a fancy, as it were, for the language, I want to begin with just looking at the language for a moment. And I want to ask you the very first question, which is, how would you define the word Mashiach? And just because of Samaritan pronunciation, also let us know how you pronounce it. So how would you define a Mashiach, a Messiah, and how do you guys pronounce it?
All right, good question. First of all, it's important to say that we Samaritans do not refer to the Messiah, Mashiach, as this name. We refer to it as the Taheb.
Okay.
And the Taheb can mean, I think in English, one accurate word would be the restorer, although I'm sure there's another English word. But also in Hebrew, latuv is, it's almost like lachzor betshuva, like they say, right? Like the person who really went to ask for an answer, basically asked for God, really. So restorer, choser betshuva, I'm sure you heard about this word. Now, restorer of what? We'll talk about in a minute. But referring to your question of Mashiach, Messiah, first of all, in ancient Hebrew, we would actually pronounce it as Mashi, because the chet is silent.
Okay.
And this reminds me of one really interesting small conversation I had with my uncle once. He referred to the Mashiach. Where did this Mashiach come from as well? Where's this word? I'm sure you know, I don't know about, like, we don't use the numbers to refer to verses, so it's hard for me to locate you the verse. But I'm sure you know this verse that says, V'ach v'kohen gadol me'achiv esh asher yuatzak et shemen HaMashiach. Or let's say a kain HaMashiach. So in other words, the word Mashiach is like limshoch, right? So the high priest used to apply a certain oil, or someone applied to him on his head. So Mashiach is to kind of like, how do you say, what's the right word for it? Basically to limroch in a sense in Hebrew, to apply or something.
Right.
Not to basically, Mashiach is an incredible word that I also want to learn what do you have to say, like what's the origins of it. But it can also kind of reminds you of Moshe in some way. I don't know if that's exactly connected. Moshe limshoch, right? So can you enlighten me a little bit what is Mashiach?
I certainly will. So the term Mashiach, as pronounced in Rabbinic Hebrew, or some people may say Masoretic Hebrew, it denotes someone that is anointed, as you said, that has the oil of anointment upon their head. And it derives from the word mashach, which means to smear upon, like a person taking a cruse of oil and smearing it upon someone's head. There's even a beautiful psalm that speaks about the oil that runneth down the head of Aaron when he was anointed. The psalm is a psalm of unity, and it begins by saying, "Oh, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity." It is like the oil of anointment that ran down upon the beard, even the head of Aharon, the high priest. And so that term for oil gushing down or running down on someone's head is mashach, from whence we denote Mashiach, which is the anointed one. And what we say of this person is that this person is empowered via this assortment of oils to do on earth what Hashem only does in heaven. So it endows a person with divine qualities and divine abilities. It's sacred. One of the things we know about oil, or in Hebrew, shemen, it is related to the Hebrew word neshama, in that it has the same exact letters. And our neshama is our soul. So as this oil is placed upon the head of the anointed priest, the anointed king, and the anointed prophet, it endows them with these divine qualities that literally infuse their neshama, their soul, allowing them to function according to Hashem's will.
Wow. Okay.
Now, what's immediately interesting about what you just said, right? And this is why I'm very methodical in my questions, because I know that the way in which I ask you things will bring things out of you that I'm unaware of
Sure.
and my community is unaware of. So one of the things that you just enlightened me on is that the pronunciation drops the chet in Samaritan Hebrew. And so that you would essentially say Mashi, which
Mhm.
as a person that is really connected with Ivrit Hebrew, it literally sounds like you're saying Moshe.
Right, and
So
even the word Moshe, ki min hamayim mashachti oto, like that's what, because from the waters I
I
took
drew
him.
him
That's
out.
why, so there is some relation to there. So interesting. But
Very
that
much.
also kind of reminds us in what the Samaritans have to say about the Mashiach is that he has the qualities of Mos- Moshe, right?
Mhm.
Moses. He has the qualities. And what would the qualities be? I think one of them you can't ignore is leadership. Because
Mhm.
if the Taheb is going to come back, one of the things that as Samaritans, and I'm sure this is shared in Judaism as well, is that he he will in a sense restore some order, because he will only come at times of what's the word, disorder or misorder, the
Yes.
and at the same time he will restore the temple, so, or the tabernacle in our sense, and he will also restore worship on Mount Gerizim. The one difference we have on Mount Gerizim, Jerusalem. So the person who will have to do that has to have incredible leadership, right? And charisma as well, to be able to really bring people. And there will be also certain miracles that he might have to perform. And soon I will read with you the some photographs I took from a Torah that my grandfather has, which have commentary near the every verse almost.
That is
And what's
beautiful.
interesting is I never read this, so I'm going to be reading it with you. So it's a commentary that I'm going to be reading it with you, and I'm very curious to know what this author has to say. If you want to do it now, we can like really jump right on it.
Okay, I want to make one more point and then we can go right
Please.
into that,
Sure.
or two more points. The first point is to continue to build upon the relationship and sound between Moshe and Mashi, as understood among Samaritan Israelites to be how we say Mashiach, Mashi, and then Moshe. And as you pointed out, even the term Moshe has some relationship to the meaning because Moshe was drawn from the waters. And I just
Yes.
want to let you know that I'm an avid student and researcher of Egyptian history, right? I
Wow.
also read and teach their language, which they call Medunecher, and we call hieroglyphs. And so,
Right.
what I've learned in studying their history is that many of their kings are anointed, Abood, with the waters from the Nile.
Wow.
So it's
So
interesting. Moshe was drawn from the very
um,
waters that their kings
wow.
are anointed with, huh?
It's incredible.
That's
Wow.
incredible, right? So
Yeah, this gives me
again,
goosebumps to think about
the,
it.
the
Um,
name is so much. But yes, continue.
wow. First of all, it's really impressive, Egyptian holographics. Like Samaritan Hebrew will be a piece of cake for you, especially because we have some kind of connections to also holographic signs when it comes to Samaritan Hebrew, like the ayin for the eye, like I showed you in the last episode, or
Yes.
the yad, yud for yad, or shin for shinaim. But yeah, I love that connection. You see that connection also in other examples. I can't think of particular ones, but there is connections to Egyptian, what the Egyptians had also. Like, I don't know if it affected how the Israelites behaved at a certain points, but I'm trying to remember one example that they had, and I can't think of one. But yeah,
It'll come
I
to
can
you.
show you. I
It'll
can show
come
you the
to you.
commentary of this
I want to ask
person.
you, or I
Go
just
ahead.
want to develop just one more thing before we move further, Abood.
Of course.
The term Taheb is the term of preference for Samaritan Israelites to refer
Yeah.
to what we call Mashiach. And Taheb denotes the Mashiach in his function as the restorer, right? He will
Hmm.
restore the order of Hashem, the rule, the decree of Hashem. And it's even developed in the works of Marka. By the way, I've
Hmm.
been studying Marka's works. I told you I've really
Yeah.
been studying, right?
Wow.
In,
Okay.
in, the, in the works
That's
of
like the
Marka,
Rambam of Samaritans.
oh yes, he's like the Rambam to the Samaritans.
Yeah.
So I'm delving into the works of Marka, and in his works, he develops the term Taheb, and he says it is not only indicative or descriptive of the role of the Mashiach as a restorer, but it also indicates the restoration of all the tribes of Israel, so that
Mhm.
when the Taheb appears, one of his functions will be to restore the tribes.
Right.
So there's a twofold function within his name, and
Right.
yeah,
And that's
that's what I wanted to
important,
say.
to restore the tribes and to reunite them and to make them, to make them align really with Hashem's commandments is super crucial. There's a kind of symbolic, but also a very foundational thing about it, and that is, the choshen that the high priest wore, the breast belt that the high priest wore, which had 12 crystals or 12 specific rocks on it, right? Uh, you know what I'm talking about. Urim
Yes,
Vatamim is what it's called, right? Urim Vatamim, the lights and the perfection, something like that. Uh, and anyway, those 12 stones each refer to one tribe. And in one Samaritan interpretation, those have to light, all of them has to light in order for the high priest to continue to speak with Hashem through the Shnei Keruvim, Shenia Kerubim. So only when the 12 tribes are aligned, those 12 stones will kind of light up, or oops, I'm back. Or in a sense, only when so when they're really aligned, then the high priest can actually continue this whole process in the tabernacle. So that's an important point you mentioned.
absolutely, and that's a beautiful point to develop. So at this point, I would love to see what you have to share with us.
Yeah, of course. So I want to open. First of all, let me. It's not on. Let's see. All right, I will share my screen here just to make sure I have two screens here. Let me share the correct
Okay.
one. So it's this one, window, and okay, let's start with this one. Do confirm for me if you see it.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to start from here. Here it says, "Ele hamishpatim asher tasim lefanecha." These are the commandments that you shall put in front of you. Now, here we have talks about the, this is after the 10 commandments. So I would actually want to start from here. Here it says, "V'yadaber Adonai al Moshe limor," and God talked to Moses to say, "I heard the cries or the callings uh, and the sayings of the Am." Okay, and before I continue on, I have to point out this verse specifically is not found in the Masoretic or Jewish Torah.
Hmm.
So it might be. I mean, it probably is maybe the first time you hear it, unless you did the research. You probably have some idea. So the commentary is right here. I'm going to point out to first of all read the most important points as well. So iti bukal esho de beru means that it's like telling them good that they said that. So what did they say? They said that you go. They told Moses, "You shall go and talk with Hashem. We cannot do it. We cannot really bear the incredible voice of God, the voice of Hashem." So Hashem said, "All right, that they're right. You shall actually talk with me, and I will give you the commandments and the laws and the tradition that you shall tell them." And then after that, mi tenweya lebabim mazelem al yara itti. And it's almost like saying, halevai. Halevai in Hebrew would mean I hope. There's probably another interpretation for it. I hope that this lesson for them will be a lesson that they shall fear me. Al-yara itti. ولشمرت مصابوتي كالأيام, and keep my commandments forever. الماني طبلما والباني مالولم. So that this can be good for them and their sons and daughters and children. Now here's where it gets important. Nebi أقم لما مقرب أخيكم مقامك. Nevi أقيم لهم مقرب أخيكم كموخا. So that a prophet I will bring for them from their brothers, like you. So he's talking to Moses, and he's saying from their brothers. So what is from their brothers? In our tradition, from their brothers simply means one of their tribes. And in the Samaritan tradition, it is from the tribe of Joseph. ونططي دباري بافيو ودبر إلي يما إتكال إيشر إيصا بنو. and I will give my speech in his mouth, so that that's what a Nevi mean, right? A Nevi, a prophet, that he will, he will be like the messenger of God. He will be the way that Hashem will communicate with us in human form, in ways. ويا إيش إيش الله يشمع الدبارو إيش يدبر أفشامي أناكي إدرش ميمو. So and now here this also verse says that it kind of is heading towards, well, what if you say, like, how can we know this person is the right person, right? So I'll continue with that in a bit, but let's read a little bit of the documentary here. וכל העם שמע את הקולות, that all the nation heard the kulot. Now this is the verse before. I just want to give you how is the interpretation done. So the ones here are the ones in ancient Hebrew, the normal text. The one which is the actual verse that the commenter wants to comment on. Then the font changes, as you can see here, and this is like commentary. So kalam shama ulara. So when the nation heard, they heard the kulot. They didn't see, right? They didn't see the sounds. You can't see sounds. كي أقول طلان رائم بسفر أياه دائم كطب وكالعام رائم. Okay, so this is really interesting. So the Jewish traditions has it the same verse, and all the nation saw the sounds. Do you see the difference I'm doing here?
Yes.
So in the Samaritan one, V'kol ha'am shama, all the nations heard. In the Jewish traditions, it is V'kol ha'am ra'a, et hakolot, that they saw the sounds. It's not a huge difference, but you can, you have to wonder why the difference happened. I'm not sure, but just to give you an example of what the commentary is, and it's really interesting to see. Okay, so when we go to here, going to the exact verse than this one, where we start to see the commentary on the Taheb. All right, that I hope that they will start fearing me, right? And of course, like, I try to always do my best with the English translation, but
Yes.
I'm sure you have a good idea of sometimes interpreting in the ancient Hebrew or Hebrew doesn't kind of make it justice, but I'll try my best. All right, and this is where it gets also very important to understand. So here it says, Alevai means that I hope that so because they said, all right, we heard the voice of Hashem, Shamanu Washinu. Shamanu Vasinu. This is also in the Jewish Torah. And when they say Shamanu Vasinu, then Hashem says, okay, let's see. This is like, between me and you.
Okay.
So he said, like, Alevai. And then here it says, Yitab lema walbani malulam. And the commentator wrote here, Kol at Esher Baharim Atob Chaim Tobim Yehye Lahem Vekol et Esher Ba Yisru Mena Mesaba Yehi Lahem Chaim Raim. So here it says that the same verse that says, behold, I put in front of you life and death. And let me say it in Hebrew, in ancient Hebrew. Look, I put in front of you the life and death, the curse and the blessings, and you're the one who are going to choose. So this is also referring to that verse. And here it's one of the most important points, which talks about the Taheb. That I will bring a prophet to you from their brothers. Now the commentary says, Nebi horauto shaliyach mdabber afsham eluam esher shalai ish kamok yeyi bamada mul eluam. So here the commentator says that Moses, Hashem is telling Moshe that I will bring a prophet like you to them, that he will talk in the name of Hashem. So one difference might be, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is the Mashiach considered a prophet in Judaism, or?
There's a greater emphasis on him being the Redeemer as opposed to just relegating him to being a prophet. But
Interesting.
yes, he is also a prophet. And just
Okay.
keeping in mind, and I'm saying this for the list. I know you know what I'm about to say, but for the listening audience,
Sure.
everyone keep in mind that the prophets are considered to be messikim or messiahs as well, even as they are anointed as well. So in
Mm-hmm.
rabbinic Judaism, you rarely find rabbis that highlight the Mashiach's function as a prophet, but they don't doubt that he's a prophet. And like Samaritan Israelites, they use Deuteronomy 18:15 as a foretelling of the Mashiach, that this person that is to come, that is like Moshe, is the
Mm-hmm.
Mashiach. So certainly that we have agreement there. What I wanted to point out for you for a moment, Abood, is something that I'm just going to share really quick. I'm
Sure.
holding up a work entitled The Torah, Jewish and Samaritan Versions Compared, a side by side comparisons of the two versions with differences highlighted, arranged by Mark Scholson. And so,
Okay. Wow.
what this work does is it has the Masoretic text on one side. Because of my camera light, you won't be able to see. But on one side has the Masoretic text, on the other side has the Samaritan text, and it
Wow.
shows you what the textual variants are. So as
That's
you were speaking, I have Deuteronomy 18:15 open. And the variant is interesting, right? Because it opens by saying, Navi mi kirbecha, ma achecha, which is a prophet or Navi mi kirbecha, from among your people,
mm-hmm.
me achecha, from among your brothers. Now, in the Samaritan Torah, you don't spell out mi kirbecha. You
Right.
just have mi
Kamocha.
kerev, which is just to say
Mikhail
from
Anachone.
among, from within. So
Yes.
that could imply from within the ranks of Moses' tribe, and not
Right.
necessarily the general term of within
Correct.
any of the tribes of Israel. So that's an interesting variant,
Correct. Mm-hmm.
because it does concede to the Samaritan view. Because again, in the Samaritan text, they're not spelling it as Mirkibeka, which is from within you. And within that context, that could have the general perception that Moses is saying that a prophet will arise from any of the tribes of Israel. But the way that it's worded in the Samaritan Torah is that a prophet like Moshe would arise from within Moshe's tribe. So I just
Right,
thought that
or
that was
Levi, right? The Levi tribe. And this is interesting because not all interpretation in the Samaritan traditions or community says that it's necessarily from Joseph. There are some that says that it's from Levi as well, which was I was just about to read it now.